At the time we're speaking, we have 17 cases that have suspected cases that have been declared to public health, 15 in Montreal, one on the South Shore and one on the North Shore. Mainly those cases are men that have had a sexual relationship with other men. It's not something that is going to go to a sustained to a community transmission that is going to be sustained. It's not something that you can acquire when you do your grocery store or in public transportation. So
after someone's exposed to this virus, it usually has an incubation period of about 10 to 14 days, up to 21 days. And then people will feel a bit of a headache. They might have some muscle aches and pains. They might have some swollen lymph nodes. And then afterwards, a couple of days afterwards, you'll start to get those very distinct skin lesions. Some people say it's similar. You might hear words that it's similar to chickenpox. It is and it isn't. With chickenpox, when you see the skin lesions, those classic skin lesions emerge, they're of different ages. So some are erupting at the same time that others are receding and scabbing over. With monkeypox, it's similar to an infection that has been eradicated from planet Earth. It's similar to smallpox in that the lesions typically are all the same age. They'll usually erupt mostly at the same time, and they'll roughly be at the same level of development. And fortunately, the vast majority of people will recover from this and will do just fine. But there obviously can be people on the sicker end of the spectrum. Luckily, that's the minority of cases. And so far to date, we haven't heard of any people impacted by this that have had a more severe illness. But of course, we know it can happen. First of all, let's acknowledge that there's not a ton known about this. This is what we call a neglected tropical infection or a neglected tropical disease, in the sense that it's, along with many other infections that plague low-income countries, there's just not a ton of research on this. But there is some, and we do know something about this. Based on some of the outbreaks in the past and some of the studies, we know that people can get this by direct contact with some of the lesions or direct contact with bodily fluids from infected people, from close contact with individuals, so being in close proximity for a prolonged period of time. And of course, there still are more distant contact, more distant infections. Those don't seem to be the majority, but that certainly can happen. When we talk about people getting this infection through sexual contact, what's really unknown is, was that just because of close and direct contact with the lesion, or was it actually sexually transmitted? Before we completely discard the sexual transmission, I think it's fair to acknowledge that, Ebola virus recently was found to be transmitted through semen. Zika virus as well was found to be transmitted through sexual means as well. So I think it's fair to keep an open mind on that mode of transmission, but it's based on what we know, close proximity is the main mode of transmission.